The title of this week's Portions podcast is Keep Reading. There are some things that we're going to talk about this week that might be hard to hear, but it's not the end of the story. But even though it's not the end of the story, it's still meaningful to God and meaningful to us. So I encourage you, grab your pen, grab your Bible. You don't want to miss this week's Portions podcast. Thanks for joining us on this week's podcast. Nathan, this is the third to last podcast of this season.
Unbelievable.
And I am just blown away by how quickly every season goes by. But we're entering into a powerful portion here. It's from Deuteronomy 26:1 through Deuteronomy 29:8. But I want to talk first about the last few verses of last week's podcast that we didn't get to, because it's talking about the Amalekites, which is a theme throughout Scripture. And if I had one thing to say about this theme, it's that if God makes a commandment to you or gives direction to you, we've got to wholeheartedly obey everything that God says without putting our own slant on it.
Yeah, no, this theme, this issue of Amalek, it really is visited throughout the Scriptures.
Yeah.
And even to this day, many Jewish families, as I understand it, when there's an enemy opposed, they will call them Amalekites.
Oh, wow.
Whoever it
Yeah.
is. Hitler was an Amalekite. Different ones. So God takes this portion very serious.
So we're just going to read three verses, Deuteronomy 25:17 through 19. Remember what Amalek did to you along the way when you came out from Egypt, how he met you along the way and attacked among you all the stragglers at your rear when you were faint and weary, and he did not fear God. Therefore, it shall come about when the Lord your God has given you rest from all your surrounding enemies in the land which the Lord your God gives you as an inheritance to possess, you shall blot out the memory of Amalek from under heaven. You must not forget. Listen, if God tells you not to forget something, don't forget it. So if you fast forward to the book of 1 Samuel chapter 15, there's a remarkable story in there where Saul was given a direct commission from the Lord: utterly take all. Don't leave anything. But Saul, doing something that outwardly might have looked spiritual, he spared the best of the sheep and oxen, spared King Agag, and he said he did it because he wanted to offer them up to the Lord. Sounds really, oh, dude, you're so holy.
So benevolent.
And it might even have looked to the people, look at our leader. He's taking the best
Such a
and he's
merciful-
given it to the Lord. But when the Lord says utterly destroy all, woe to us who don't follow him.
It's so true. And we can, especially in our society, Scott, we can say, well, that just sounds so mean.
Yeah.
That just sounds so mean. And God is more sober about evil in our world than we are.
Yeah.
And that's a problem.
That's a problem.
Because he knows this people group is going to not end until they wipe you off the planet. You have got to address this issue. And God never says he's glad that the world is this way.
Right.
He doesn't say,
Right.
and this is the way I designed it. We know the way God designed it was in perfect unity, him walking with Adam and Eve in the cool of the day.
Yes.
Sin broke things down. And because of that, he has to bring order or it will spiral into chaos.
Yeah.
And Saul just disregards the command.
He disregards the command.
And that causes lots of problems moving forward.
Including Haman, who is a descendant of the Amalekites, right, by birth.
In the story of Esther.
In the story of Esther. And Haman comes up with a decree that every child of Israel, every Jew, should be annihilated.
Yes.
So it's interesting to me. God says, utterly destroy these.
Yes.
And because of man's desire to do what he wanted to do, maybe what looked benevolent, he spares. And now Haman is among the first in a series of many who wants to see Israel utterly and completely destroyed. I don't like talking about politics in our podcast, but there's a people group today whose very mission, according to their charter,
yeah.
is to wipe out every Jew. Do you know how I can tell that God's purposes are still relevant for Israel? People say, oh, God's replaced Israel with the church. If God replaced Israel with the church, the enemy would be after annihilating everybody in the quote unquote church. But to this day, the enemy is still out to annihilate every child of Israel, every Israelite, every Jewish person, because God's promises still pertain to them. They are a threat to the kingdom of darkness. So whether it's Pharaoh in Egypt or Haman wanting to wipe out every Jew, or Herod, or modern day nation groups that want to see Israel wiped out, I think you can trace it all the way back to this command in Deuteronomy. God says, don't forget.
Yes.
And Saul might not have understood why,
Right.
but God did.
And he didn't have to understand. He just had to obey.
So listen, when God tells us something,
right.
forget this. God may tell
don't
you
forget
something.
this,
Don't
God.
forget this.
Yeah,
Thank you. Yeah, God said, don't forget it. Thank you. Forgive me.
That was a joke.
No, it was a good joke. When God speaks something to us, woe to us who try to put our edge on it or don't follow implicitly. I really want to encourage you. Some of you may be living with things that God told you to do, but you, in your own understanding, might not have fully grasped why he said it, and are now doing things in your own strength or in your own way, and maybe even wondering why you're floundering. I just want to encourage you, go back to God. If you're convicted that you've done that, just ask him to forgive you and to search you, and he will make your paths straight. It's so beautiful to me, Nathan, that we can blow it a gazillion times. All we have to do is go back to God. Sadly, this lack of remembering what God said right here has cost them to this day.
Yeah. It is tragic. And honestly, if you bear that story out in 1 Samuel, at the end of 1 Samuel, it's an Amalekite that takes credit for killing Saul. So of all things, but that's for another time.
Yeah.
In this portion, we're in chapter 26. And again, just as a reminder for those that are kind of journeying with us, we're getting so many of the laws retold to us throughout the book because God, through Moses, is preparing the people to take the land. So it talks all about first fruits and tithes, and that's important right now because they're about to go into the promised land.
Right.
And essentially, in this whole first chapter of our portion, he's saying, hey, give of the first and the best of the land because it was given to you.
That's right.
Honor God because God honored you.
I love
get
that.
to go into the land.
I love that. I actually circled that in my Bible. Deuteronomy 26:2. You shall take some of the first of all the produce of the ground, which you bring in from your land, that the Lord your God gives you. And I just wrote this in my margin. I said, if we don't have a revelation that it's God that provides, we will never give our first fruits with the right heart.
Yeah.
That's the key. So many people, I can't speak to the motivation of people who manipulate others to give and call it tithing or first fruits. That's between them and God. As for me and my house, everything that we have comes from the Lord.
Everything.
And if we have that understanding, then giving the first part away is the beautiful thing. Listen to this. Verse 13, Nathan. You shall say before the Lord your God, I have removed, let me go back to verse 12.
Okay.
When you have finished paying all the tithe of your increase in the third year, verse 13 now, you shall say before the Lord your God, I have removed the sacred portion from my house, and I've also given to the Levite and the alien, the orphan and the widow. The sacred portion. There is a portion of our increase that God views as the sacred portion, and that's the first fruits.
The first.
Right?
Yes.
The 9/10 is not sacred.
Yes.
The first tenth is sacred.
Yes.
if we have that revelation, first of all, everything that we have comes from the Lord.
Yes.
It doesn't mean that every dollar has a different value, but to the Lord,
Yes.
a sign that we have the revelation that we've gotten everything from the Lord is that we'll take that sacred portion and get it out of our house. If we keep something in our house that's sacred to God, watch out. I'm just reminded, I can't remember, in the book of Joshua, one of the first cities that they went into, someone hid, if the name comes to you, someone hid some of the...
Oh, the city of Achan.
Yes.
Achan's sin, yeah.
Achan's sin. Achan hid something that belonged to God.
Yes.
And it cost him.
Yes.
It cost the children of Israel.
It cost the whole community,
It
yes.
cost the whole community. What if our communities lived today by caring for the Levite, the alien, the orphan, the widow?
Yeah.
What if we cared so much that it was more important to us to take that sacred portion and give it to the Lord than it was for us to try to figure out, oh, if I give it through so-and-so. No. Our motivation must be, I'm giving this to God. What people do with it is between them and God.
That's exactly right.
But
and they'll have to answer for that.
And they'll have to answer for that
That's
in
right.
the same way that we'll have to answer
Yes.
if we keep the sacred portion. Anyway, friends, I want to encourage you to get a resource from Together for Israel that I really poured myself into. A number of years ago, I wrote a book called Jesus Was Not a Christian. And if you've not read that book, I would love to get it into your hands. And some people actually mocked the title of that, saying, what do you mean Jesus was not a Christian? Of course he was a Christian. Friends, this book talks about the fact that Jesus was born a Jew, he lived as a Jew, he died King of the Jews, he's coming back as the Lion of the tribe of Judah, and Israel matters to God, and it should matter to us as well. I want to encourage you, go to our website, log on to our store or TFI, togetherforisrael.org, order Jesus Was Not a Christian today.
Regardless of people's opinions on tithes and whatever else.
Right.
First fruits, this is super plain language. God is saying, hey, you are the generation that are going into the promise.
Right.
Show some gratitude. Honor me.
Yes.
And don't just take over.
Right.
Honor me in it. And I mean, I think if we just boil it down to that, we honor the Lord when we remember that it comes from him.
And it takes anything that looks naturally legalistic
out of
and it wipes that out.
Yes.
If people say it's legalistic to do that, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
God gave me all of this. I'm gonna take this sacred part and give it back to the Lord. If we're looking at it as legalism, then we don't have a revelation that God gave it.
That's just true.
It's all about me. This is what I have, therefore I can choose what to do with it.
Yeah.
Wow.
So we're getting these types of commands. Let's jump over to chapter 27. I love this. This kind of gives you, again, just this kind of 30,000-foot view. Moses and the elders of Israel, verse 1, commanded the people, keep all these commands that I give you today. When you've crossed the Jordan into the land your God is giving you, set up large stones, coat them with plaster, write on them all the words of this law when you've crossed over to enter the land the Lord your God is giving you, a land flowing with milk and honey, just as the Lord, the God of your ancestors, promised you. God doesn't just want them to remember these laws and these words.
Yeah.
He doesn't just want them to commit it to their understanding. He wants them to put a sign up, put plaster over the rocks, and write these things so that you're confronted with these things. And then he lets them know there's a blessing and there's curses. And so he talks about this, and we actually, some portions back, I kind of forward referenced this because he tells them he wants them, there's curses and there's blessings. Well, here they actually act that out. Half of the tribes go up on one mountain and speak the blessings. Half of them go up on the other mountain and speak the curses and rehearse the very things God said. That happens right here in chapter 27, verse 12. When you've crossed the Jordan, these tribes shall stand on Mount Gerizim to bless the people. He gives the list. Verse 13, and these tribes shall stand on Mount Ebal to pronounce the curses. And there's the list. Now it's remember it. It's write it down and put it on plaster on the rocks.
Yes.
Now it's acted out, stand on two opposing mountains. In other words, this is really important to God.
Yeah.
And he wants the people to be confronted with it over and over
I love
and
it.
over.
I love it. There are certain things that God says that are the responsibility of God alone.
Correct.
That would be a unilateral kind of covenant, like the one he made with Abraham. When he walked through the pieces, he said, I'm giving you this land. I'm giving you this. I will bless you. I will make your name great. That didn't require anything on Abraham's part to obtain.
He's just telling him this is
right?
what's going to happen.
He made a covenant with Noah. Okay, I don't care how bad man sins from now on, there's going to be a rainbow in the sky, and that's a sign of my covenant. He made an unconditional covenant with David,
Yes.
right? But there are conditional covenants that he makes. So check this out. Deuteronomy 28, verse 1. Now it shall be, if you diligently obey the Lord your God, be grateful to do all his commandments, which I command you, the Lord your God will. So it's like, if you obey, the Lord your God will. Where's the other part? Verse 15 of that same chapter, 28. But it shall come about, if you do not obey the Lord your God to observe all these things, curses will come upon you.
Yeah.
God, this is a very conditional thing. There are certain things that are God's responsibility for us to obtain.
Yes.
And there are certain things that are our responsibility. Those conditional covenants are very, very important. One covenant that God made is that he would give the land of Israel to the children of Israel. But he said, if you do this,
Right.
you will no longer be in the land.
Right.
So although there's an unconditional covenant, there are some conditions that come along with it. That's why Israel has not inhabited the land of Israel until most recently. And it's kind of an interesting thing, Nathan, because I just want to say this because this confuses some people. In 1948, Israel became a nation again.
Again.
On the map
On the map.
again.
Yes. Yeah.
But it had nothing to do with Israel deserving it, according to the book of Ezekiel.
Sure.
It had everything to do with God's name
Yes.
being glorified. I'm not bringing you back because of you. I'm bringing you back for my name's sake.
Yes.
So there are people today who are saying, no, Israel is done. 70 AD, they were done. That's the end. The church now replaces Israel. No. If God makes an unconditional covenant to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, saying this land will be yours as an everlasting covenant, it's a little bit off of this, but it's super important to delineate the difference between a conditional covenant, which God is speaking to them right now,
Sure.
and an unconditional covenant.
Yeah, Scott, it's so important you bring it out because people tend to get so confused about this, and there is a spirit of confusion that wants to jump all over this because there's an agenda behind it.
Yep.
Ultimately, if the enemy can eradicate Israel and the Jewish people, well, then God cannot fulfill the rest of his promises.
Exactly right.
And so Jesus is coming back. Yeshua is coming back to a Jewish Jerusalem.
That's right.
Not because he likes them better than anybody, not because he wants them to destroy anybody. He just says that's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
He says it's going to be a Jewish Jerusalem that he comes back to. He will set foot on the Mount of Olives. And it gives very clear promises of what we can expect in the last days as it relates to how Israel will be oppressed by the nations, and yet God will be a deliverer, and they will look to him. Why is this important? Because if these people no longer matter, and all of that's null and void, then none of this other matters either, and that's a problem. We have to take God at his word. But Scott, you it's a sober thing, and Deuteronomy 28 is very sober in that very piece of blessings and curses. And I'll to put a bow on that idea, if you look towards the end of 28, I'll just start in 63. Let me start in 62. You who were as numerous as the stars in the sky will be left but few in number.
Wow.
Because you did not obey the Lord your God. Just as it pleased the Lord to make you prosper and increase in number, so it will please him to ruin and destroy you. You'll be uprooted from the land you are entering to possess. Then the Lord will scatter you among the nations from one end of the earth to the other. There you'll worship other gods, gods of wood, stone, which neither you nor your ancestors have known. Among those nations, you'll find no repose, no resting place for the sole of your feet. There the Lord will give you an anxious mind, eyes with longing, and a despairing heart. Scott, this is terrible. It's not what God desires, but what he said is, please take this serious.
Wow.
And if you don't, there are consequences for that. Thank God this is not where it ends.
Amen.
But this is part of the story. So for some people, that they read this and say, see, God is done with them. All I would say is keep reading.
Keep reading.
Keep reading. Yes, this is actual, and it's true, and it breaks his heart. And we have seen this play out. I was just, before we started recording, talking to Simon here in the studio, and man, I was trying to watch a movie that I've wanted to see for a long time. It's based on the Holocaust. I won't even promote it right now. I just couldn't get through it. I couldn't.
Because?
It's so gut-wrenching. Because it's not just that it's hard stuff to see, it's hard stuff to know it actually took place.
Yep.
And if I'm very honest, it's hard to hear the types of things being said today, Scott.
Yeah.
And words have power and meaning,
they
and
do.
they matter.
They do.
It's crazy. I'm kind of ranting, so
No, you're not.
Please help me. In a society where we want to, it's funny, we want to erase words for some things. You can be whatever you want to be on so many other things. But for some reason, we still can find Jewish people and we can hate them, you know? I thought you could be whatever you wanted to be. It's just very concerning to me that we see people talking in a very similar way as to what we saw happen in the Holocaust. And Scott, God will, it never says here that he liked anybody carrying these things out. This is God with his people saying, I told you something, there are going to be punishments for that.
Yeah.
But I will bring you back.
I will bring you
Jeremiah says it, Ezekiel says it, Daniel says it.
So good.
And so we're going to, if we just keep reading, in chapter 29, we talk about the renewal of the covenant, but it's sober to me because people read things like this and use it as an example of how God's done with Israel, and it's just not true.
Yeah, well, I look forward to next week's podcast because we get to talk about that. So awesome, Nathan. Friends, thank you so much for joining us. God is not through with Israel, but as Nathan just pointed out, sadly, Israel must reap the repercussions of disobedience to God, which sadly follows the biblical history. But I just want to remind you of something. Regardless of how disobedient Israel was, God never rejected them. And in the midst of that disobedience, he says things like, I've loved you with an everlasting love. He says, as long as the sun, moon, and stars are in the sky and the waves are in the sea, you, Israel, will forever be a nation before me. So the end of the story, which is beautiful, the end of the story is life. Stick with us. We look forward to coming back next week and talking about the Lord's heart for the end of days.